right, well, welcome and bienvenue to NeurotechX Hack Night. NeurotechX is an international community that facilitates the advancement of neurotechnology. Our pillars are community, education, and innovation. We have chapters worldwide, meetup events, and a very active online Slack. And if you don't have a chapter in your community or at your academic institution, please get in touch and we'll help you set that up. Join our Slack if you haven't already seen the link. Just let me know. And we've got newsletter and website with lots of resources. And the most recent, I see that the NeurotechX Zurich is starting, being pioneered by IDUN, and which is where Mayank is interning currently, I believe. Anyway, there's great imaging group there in Zurich. So yeah, welcome everybody. And so we're still waiting for some people to come in. And this would be the normal time of the evening where we would also just, if anybody's new here, if you could just quickly introduce yourself and tell us what brings you here.
All right, I'll go ahead first, I guess. So this is my first SF Hack Night. My name is Mohit, and I'm a graduate student here at University of Florida, and I work with brain-computer interfaces. Related to NeurotechX, I've been involved since December last year as a connectome support. So basically interfacing between chapters and assisting in any way possible. And now I mostly focus on the Buzz-in Review series. And we are coming up with something big next year. Yeah, just to put it out there, definitely. And nice to join. This is a really cool format, Morgan. Yeah, good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I hardly think of you as new, but it's great to have you here, and appreciate anybody who's willing to join us from the East Coast.
Yeah, definitely. I might jump off a little bit. Just I'm sorry for that, but I just might jump off a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, for those not familiar, the Buzz-in Review is an annual event that will come back in January, I assume.
Yeah, January mid, February mid. Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, so you can also catch our previous, this year's Buzz-in Review is on our YouTube channel for anybody interested. And yes, we will try and outdo it next year.
And the recording online is from the San Francisco chapter, to add on the highlight. This was the first time I think we broadcasted it. Morgan was the presenter.
Okay. Didn't we push it did we push it over? No?
Yeah, but you were the only chapter who did it online, and that's the Buzz-in Review for everyone to see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but that is a different it's a different channel. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, and thanks to Alex, man, that was like record time. You got the last week's video up. I think it was like, is it that same night? Anyway, okay, so yeah, is there anybody else joining us for first time that would like to introduce themselves? Well, no pressure. And yeah, so tonight, I think we're going to have Abhik Chaudhry join us from Arizona State to talk about his wearables. And actually, the way we talked about it was he would be interested in talking to us about projects that didn't work, which I thought was, you can learn a lot from those two. And yeah, this week obviously has been the NeuroMatch Academy for those. Is anybody trying to follow along NeuroMatch Academy?
I did sign up for the observer track, and I've been put in the group, so that's pretty cool. But I'm not following up with the academy progress as such.
I mean, I've followed enough to see like it's a heavy workload.
It's a proper summer school.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of other things going on during the day, but I've always caught the question and answers at the end of the day, and seen certainly seen all the Twitter comments, and they're like yeah. If you're not feeling like you're falling behind, we haven't done it right, is I think the way they put it. Which
so they have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And they're uploading all the videos there.
Sure. Well, Crowdcast always has a replay.
Yeah, and they have a GitHub also. So I think they're allowing people to follow up whatever they're giving in that academy. I think the only positive thing that people who got accepted into it is the networking and the direct supervision by TA and professors. Other than that, it seems a very heavy program, and some of them, they are superstars. I know Byron Yu. I go to his journal club. He's a very smart person, and he knows what he's doing. So it seems that it's worth to subscribe to it next year, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, it's amazing how well it's worked too. Like, I don't know why they switched over to Zoom at some point today, and I didn't know if that was because I saw some messages like that their GitHub was down, or anyway, it's like, it's still incredible what they've managed to do in terms of like this surpasses the attendance of most conferences in at least in our neuroimaging, and it's so hats off to them for everything that they've managed to pull together, and it's an amazing set of speakers, and I'd say even better set of TAs that are really making it happen. So we do know some people who are like formal, like interactive track. So I'm definitely hoping to have them come talk. Abby's one of them, and which is pretty amazing too, because she's also managing like 2 other jobs. Yeah, hoping to have them come talk about their experience, and with the interactive track, you have access to the TAs, and obviously you've got access, or you were working with project mentors and doing some, some real projects that are probably going to be pretty incredible, and it's also pretty amazing. Excuse me. All right, sorry, child care duties. Just 1 second.
That's okay. I can take over. Does anyone know how much does it cost to go inside the interactive track?
What was your question about the Slack channel?
Not the Slack, the interactive track of the NeuroMatch Academy. Does anyone know how much does it cost?
The active track on NeuroMatch. I'm
Yeah.
not sure right now. I haven't been checking up on that.
But NeuroMatch?
NeuroMatch, yeah. How much like Abby is paying? Do you know for the interactive track, or was it for free this year?
I thought it was free.
Oh wow!
I mean, I don't. It could be that the interactive costs money.
Because they're saying, oh, this course usually costs like $4,000, but because of COVID and
yeah, I mean, but that 4,000 would have included, probably room and board. I mean, some of the things that they were comparing it to were like Cold Spring Harbor and places that you definitely physically go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so small groups of 3 to 5 students work together on projects. And I love too that how much that they've kind of like merged with INCF, or certainly like they're using Neurostars as a discussion, web. Sorry, just more password requests. I think, yeah, shouldn't. So Neurostars, for those who aren't familiar with it, is started more as kind of like a neuroimaging, stack exchange kind of thing, and just like ask your questions here so that you don't have to be on a mailing list to see them, and they're easier to index and search. And it's now kind of like together with the Brain Hack Mattermost, which hopefully everybody's already on. It's two great platforms that NeuroMatch Academy kind of adopted for this, and
to be honest, I feel threatened by this NeuroMatch Academy. I spent my 4 years of my PhD learning this stuff and basically tweaking, playing with all this, and then they train it in 3 weeks for everyone.
Well, I mean,
especially if the data is open access and.
Sure. I mean,
yeah, but I doubt the understanding that they get in the 3 weeks is akin to what you get over the 4-year period. Like, I know I was looking at over the course material, and they have a day dedicated to linear systems, which is an entire semester-long course. So, it's going to be an introduction to the concept of linear systems and how it applies to it, but it's not going to be the whole linear systems. And I think that'll be probably the same across most of the subjects.
The thing is that I've met a lot of people who, I don't know how your process of thinking goes, but I met a lot of people who are able to play with black boxes and give good results without really understanding the underpinning of the algorithms. And I don't know if this type of NeuroMatch Academy will really help the process of research, or will just make people generate a lot of results that could be noise and not like.
Well, I mean, there's some really good questions in there in terms of, how do we protect ourselves from a lot of noise papers, but certainly what's awesome. I mean, you saw this with the Kremble Summer School, or like so I don't know if John's joined us yet, but so the Cremble School for neuroinformatics, or summer school, was supposed to be like 15 people in person, right? That was like their original plan. And I'm so glad that, that changed, and they tried to adopt what they saw as like really great platforms that worked with NeuroMatch, the earlier NeuroMatch on conferences and HBM. And so for that kind of like just accessibility, it's amazing, right? Like, yeah, like Jaden's saying, like it's not going to replace doing a 4-year PhD, and but I mean, I love the way they're doing it, in the sense that, like, because they're making everything available on the web, pretty much as it comes out, like, in a sense, next year can only be better, because people are, like, it's going to be like, that first Stanford, or is it like Coursera NLP course? Like, so many people have seen this, that it'll be, so much, the easy to take in material is going to be absorbed, and we'll just be building on, we'll just be adding to it. Yeah. Well, it's still a pretty, I mean, it's not covering everything, right? It's let me just get to the.
I saw a guy today on a random YouTube channel, actually through LinkedIn, and he put some EEG on his head, and he's trying to play a game, and he's actually controlling the game with moving his head left and right and up and down. And it seems like it's a brain-machine interface that it's trying to guess his intention, but I think what's happening is it's actually predicting his muscle activity more than his intention. So this type of things, it just gets to me. Like, there are a lot of smart people who are able to do things by just hacking it without like knowing. And it just sometimes I'm saying it just promotes a bad picture about the state of the art. I see.
Or they're picking up the EMG right here instead of the EEG, which is
Okay.
I always kind of have an issue with a lot of the projects that use the like EEG stuff to control stuff, but in the end they're actually just using eye blinks and EMG. And
Exactly,
it's like,
yeah.
I mean, I get the useful, I get like you're probably classifying something to control it, but I feel like using eye blinks to control anything is a terrible like method, because we blink naturally, and so we're just going to be setting off the controller constantly.
Yeah.
Another problem with eye blinks or winking is there's a lot of people who can only wink in one eye. Like for me, I can only wink in my left eye, and when I was using Google Glass, which only is on the right eye, I couldn't use the blink feature at all unless I did a double blink, which isn't very useful as a control mechanism because I can't see while doing that. But using eye tracking for triggers can be useful if it's like if you use eye tracking and hover over a point for a certain amount of time, it will trigger something. That's used in quite a lot of games, and Google Glass also used that, where if you look at something for long enough, it will trigger. This is good for certain types of UI. But it generally, it needs to be augmented by either a controller or some other more advanced control scheme on top of it.
By eye tracking, you mean a camera tracking the eyes. You don't mean some kind of BCI.
Yeah, currently you need cameras, and those cameras are still generally kind of expensive to get good feed rate, since you usually want a feed rate at least at the rate of whatever you're seeing. So in VR's case, you want 120 or 240 hertz if possible, but that means you have to lower the resolution, which can cause some issues. But I've used eye tracking in a number of different games I've tried out, and it can make a big difference in speeding up certain types of UI elements. Where if you augment it with regular controls, it just speeds up finding what you want, because instead of having to move and point your controller at something, all you need to do is look at that item, pull the trigger or whatnot if you're using a controller. And that, I don't remember the actual increase in time, but there's been a couple studies done on using eye tracking for UI elements, and generally they can be helpful. But if brain-computer interfaces are able to start to predict that type of stuff based on like image reconstruction from brain scans, which is starting to be able to be done. If that could be done in real time, then you wouldn't need a camera. It could just look at what image is being reconstructed from your from the brain scan, e.g., and use that to figure out where you're looking and trigger it based off of that. But that, I think, is still about 4 or 5 years away, because the speed at which you can reconstruct a image from a brain scan, I don't think is that high right now. And it's also if I remember correctly, pretty processor intensive on a computer to figure out what it's trying to reconstruct.
Yeah, definitely got some work to do there. I like what they're doing in terms of, oh, excuse me, small child.
Another interesting thing about eye tracking is when you use it for understanding what a person is looking at and how fast they are focusing on a subject, especially when you combined it with EG. I don't know if Alex is here right now, but yeah, I think I see him here. Like, he understands this a lot better than I do, but how our eyes can sometimes start moving in a way before we physically notice, and the only thing that notices as well is our brain. So you can actually have a computer respond to a movement that's happening before you as a person even know it's really happening, which can, for games at least, or certain virtual reality or visual experiences, to be very useful for changing something as you're starting to focus on it, including things like foveated rendering can be increased dramatically if you can predict where they're going to focus before they actually look at it.
So yeah, I mean, just along those lines, to point out again that NextMind's dev kit is currently available, which is the 8 dry electrodes, occipital device that is definitely using, it's using like a visual steady state effect to tell what you're looking at. But by overlaying that either with AR on a television UI, which is, it's somewhat cheating. But I also really like the latest stuff that real time eye tracking for MRI, and getting where you're getting your gaze position from the MRI is much improved. So I want to.
You can find out if people are asleep. It's one of the very useful applications of eye tracking in the scanner, is seeing when people have their eyes closed.
That now that would actually be useful, wouldn't it? And it's such a yeah. Is there a particular gaze position of you're still looking forward, right? It's like
the scanner is so loud. I don't know if they're sleeping or.
Well, so the current stuff, you can get a good estimation for the basically the gaze point, but whether you can have like just the small eyelids captured, I don't know.
But you must be able to tell if someone their eyes closed. Right? I would have thought that'd be easy to do. I don't have the expertise to know if this is the case or not.
So I think it's still so the paper I saw is from Child Mind Institute, and I don't know if you've seen this. I think it's still, I want to say it's still in like bioRxiv, but anyway, we can check and see if sleeping was one of the things that they could do. They were definitely trying to skimp on dealing with eye tracking in the scanner. Anyway, I want to shift gears and introduce somebody new, because I've also asked if he would be so kind as to show us some projects. But Abhig Chowdhury, yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Okay, and you're at Arizona State.
Yeah, Arizona State University by day, and just generally build a lot of wearables projects, just because sometimes universities can be limiting.
Sure, but now, so tell me about. I mean, is this? Are you in a maker lab at ASU? Because I know ASU has some some awesome initiatives, especially for like interdisciplinary programs and research.
Yeah.
How much of this is your day job?
So, been in a few initiatives around ASU. One of the first ones was, interdisciplinary lab, getting a lot of designers, engineers together, and worked on. We were kind of like a glorified job house for the university. So, executive management wants something done, and then they just get a bunch of students together that are, technically skilled to get it done. So we're kind of a glorified job house, but of course it was fun because I still got to work on our projects, so got to learn a lot of skills. But most recently I'm actually just starting a PhD with a Center for Ubiquitous Computing is the name of the lab at ASU, and they're much more general, like actually publishing researchers. So I'm much more excited to, do work contributing to the public domain as opposed to, whichever startups or anything else are in we were partnering for with the other lab, but now getting to, do more open source work and have that be publicly funded. I'm very excited for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, and it sounds really great. I mean, certainly, just looking over things that you've published and even if they're just conference things, it's like a wide range of topics. Do you have anything that you'd want to show us today? And so just I met Abik at the Open Humans community call, and where we've been talking about, of course, adding EEG to Open Humans. Uploading at this point just Muse data, but basically uploading resting data and something that at least tentatively titled My Spectrogram, and that anyway, we got started talking after that, and I know I learned a lot. I got a lot of resources. So it seems like you've been working on wearables that are connected not only with like communities that need help. I mean, in the sense that like you had some devices that were focused on the blind, and some others, as well as like it looked like some just really cool wearables. Like I'd love it if you show your EG hat, because I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the kind of thing that only someone who has no idea about the space could have made, and so I appreciate making it. Yeah, but so with a lot of my publications so far, I also kind of worked in the Cubic lab before, going in as a researcher now, as also just like I built stuff for many of their projects. So one of my good friends, he is blind, and so he built solutions for the blind, and I helped put together various haptic and sensory augmentation projects for him using, ERC, just vibrating motors placed around the body, built some wearables so I can sew, design some boards, design some firmware for that. Nothing crazy at all, but it was nice to just contribute on that level, as well as funnel that money into building my own projects. And so one of those was realizing, saying, oh, the Open BCI platform is like a little bit expensive, despite it being the cheapest there has been, but and trying to build my own board, realizing that the firmware was actually non-trivial in the form that Open BCI had it at that point. So I ended up buying an Open BCI board, and like the goal for me is longitudinal superset data. So basically data from wearables that you wear like all the time and are like really comfortable is like the end goal. Of course, that is a very tall order, but so you wear it all the time, but it's also like a superset of data. So saying, oh, now that we have, your brain waves, your ECG, your EMG from various areas, your general activity, your GPS, and all these different data streams. Now a researcher can craft questions to ask against that data set that maybe not have been in that data set to begin with. And yeah, your aura ring, your blood oxygenation. And the thing that I find exciting about that superset data is, like, let's say you have blood oxygenation from your aura ring, and with a superset data, you correlate it to a mental state that you got using EEG, and now you can deploy an application that runs on an aura ring, so you don't have to have like a complicated EEG thing in order to make something cool make more powerful and accessible algorithms for more accessible hardware. But again, yeah, the dream. So anything around sort of data structuring, hardware abstraction layers, figuring out how to get things to work with each other, and deriving better insights. So I know that there's going to be some machine learning people that we're going to be talking about today. So very excited for that as well. And where I come from and where I'm going, and excited about with this hardware space. With hardware, firmware, software, I'm a software person, classically trained, but got into hardware because it's needed. I didn't have the data that I needed to do my software things, and so because it's necessary, not only because it's fun. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, and so we'll hopefully talk some more about Open BCI and free EEG32 at some point this evening. So what did you weave into the hat?
So
you have the hat there.
So I have the hat here, and it looks as such. So it's like actually, kind of inconspicuous. However, they are comb electrodes, so they do kind of stab my head. And I 3D printed these little electrode holders.
Sure.
The only people who sold it, the people that I found that most accessibly would ship me AGCL comb electrodes in different lengths were at NeurotechX. So spent money on that. Or not at NeurotechX. I'll have to look up the invoices they sent me, but they thought I was like a legit person buying them, which they were of course mistaken. But NeuroSpec EEG, I think they're based out of a European country that starts with an S. That is not very specific. But
I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so basically, it's a haircut compatible EEG setup. So it just has the 8 electrodes going around the back because, at least in Western cultures, it is pretty normal to have that hair pretty short. And then, of course, limited to 8 channels from the Sci-Town board that I have here. And I actually had earrings for a little bit because I was going to use my ears, like wires coming straight from my earrings for reference voltages. But of course, making caps for EEG is, especially ones that are, you're supposed to move around with, is very hard.
Yeah.
And the data that actually this generated wasn't necessarily up to grade, and I wasn't able to get it fully working. So I'm like, okay, I'll take a step back from biopotential monitoring for a little bit and focus on firmware on other projects. So I have a bunch of cameras around my house doing more computer vision, doing more audio and machine learning in the sort, solely because I was like, it's gonna be a while before these kinds of systems work. So just operating on a longer time frame. I also got to work with a startup that was hoping to do some smart textile stuff, and I built them a biopotential EMG board based off of basically the EMG amplifier circuit off of, I'm sure that you guys seen like the little red pill EMG items. I have one back here, but yeah, just like a cute little open source item, and then hooking that up to ADC, and they enjoyed that. But it's tough with these applications because it's like you need to get basically the physical transducer, how the person's going to wear it, like fashion design, industrial design, and then the electronics, and then the firmware, and then the software, and then the telemetry, and then the software, and then huge, huge. So excited about the space, but definitely still getting into it.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, we certainly could use some firmware expertise, or it's like the only thing the closest I've gotten to working with firmware is flashing my routers at home. I think is pretty much. But I gotta say, if you go with something like OpenWRT, like there's a lot you can learn, and it's nice to it's nice to have that. It's nice to know that you can kind of install a Linux system with
Yeah,
64 megabytes of RAM, or something akin to that, and yeah.
100%. So yeah, I took an unscheduled nap today and woke up a little bit into the meeting. So excited to hear other people present.
Sure.
Back. I know that I missed the introductions.
Well, okay. So, and very happy to introduce you to our group, which is incredibly informal and is, we have an agenda that I make up weekly. It's partly conversation starters than necessarily things that we'll definitely cover. But we'd kind of started with NeurotechX Academy that's going on, and which is super interesting. But I was definitely, or certainly we were kind of focused at the beginning, just in terms of how they're managing to pull it off at scale, because what's super interesting about it is really just the incredible number of students that they're managing to simultaneously have interacting, not only with mentors but also TAs and with interactive tracks. It's I don't think it's it's nothing like these I mean, it's nothing like the scale of Coursera or EDX or something, but for the kinds of things that would have been happening this summer in person, it's pretty remarkable. So I did I'm just checking the there's a webinar that I'm just seeing whether. So just an example of what we don't have always. So there's I was kind of hoping we'd be able to catch this Soterix. For those who don't know, Soterix Medical makes it started as a TDCS kind of company with a very simple box, and it looked like one of these like electroshock boxes with like a dial to turn up the current, and using, again, when it started, it was like a typical paradigm of large large area sponges, and over time Abhishek Datta papers on what he calls high density TDCS became quite standard through his work on that, in the sense of like instead of using these large area sponges, these 4 centimeter squared sponges, using something that was essentially compatible. I mean, this is what Soterix did, was they made the electrodes compatible in size to the electrodes that you can pop into a biosemi cap. So biosemi is pretty much the most widely used EEG research EEG system. I don't actually have numbers to back that up. I believe that in the sense that, like, if you ask people what do they use, I don't know. John, do we have any data on this?
I don't have the data, no, but that's the one we're buying.
So
we want some anecdotal,
more anecdotal evidence. So I'm definitely going to talk to Cortex Solutions, and I'd love to ask, because Cortex is a reseller as opposed to pushing their own hardware. I wonder if what they would say. But some of the companies only sell direct, so stuff. Anyway. Making them. So Soterix, if you check their research page, you can see they've got. I dropped in a link there because I wanted to show the mBrainTrain mobile EEG webinar that's on the top there, and there's a number of devices that I think are close to what a 32 channel free EEG 32 board would or system would look like if you put it all together. But I thought it was interesting that Soterix was using this particular smarting EEG system. I forget I think mBrainTrain is the company name. It's Serbian, and their CEO was going to do this webinar, and let me get there. Maybe they're
the Soterix FNIRS device on that page looks very Star Trek.
Yeah. So I think Josh is on right now. Josh had some pictures, and the breakdown of it too, just in terms of like I want to say it's like 200 sensors, something. I think it was
256.
Yeah, I mean it's really. Isn't that it's all forehead based though, right?
Right. They're like overlapped. It's like a diffuse tomography setup.
And it's a
retinotopic mapping. Isn't that what Kyle called it?
Yeah. I mean it's cool. It's like $20,000, right?
Yep.
I mean, I haven't. So we've talked about this before. It is interesting the how they multiplex the sensors to be able to get that kind of high resolution, high spatial resolution. It's a cool device, and I also wonder who built it. I mean, in the sense that like, who's the?
Which device are we looking at? Is it the
I'll drop it in right now. Here.
The FNIRS one is at the bottom.
Oh yeah, I see that one.
I just dropped the link.
And that's the Star Trek looking like one?
Yeah.
I would say it looks very Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's a very accurate description.
Let me just. I just dropped in a link for the M Brain Train.
Is this multi-BCI paper, is that social EEG?
Say again?
It's looking at differences between individuals or whatever's common among them? I guess I'm a little late, but...
No, it's...
The link
Are you
in the
talking
chat
about the-
is group augmentation and realistic visual search decisions.
Yeah, I linked that one. The person talking at the time was talking about data fusion, and so using many sensors, like an n to many to one kind of situation. But there's this researcher I met, David Valeriani, who was doing group EEG fusion to make a group decision making. So he would build a classifier with a bunch of different people's EEG data streaming in. He'd show you a picture of like a polar bear or of like an Arctic scene, and there'd be a polar bear or like a bunch of penguins, or maybe, you know, a polar bear like in a group of penguins or something, and you had to decide if there was a polar bear there or not. And he would build this confidence rating with this collaborative BCI like system that the lab he is part of built, and that's kind of what that was going off of.
Did he do them at the same time or just one after the other and then compared?
So that's a good question. He does a number of experiments, I think.
I'm always interested in multi-board stuff. I think it's going to be, because once we get BCIs working for one person, we're going to want, you know, interactivity.
Yeah, and you can actually use the OpenBCI to measure two people's EEG signals. So
yeah, but I mean, like, when we're not in the same room.
You can do that up to, like, I don't know, 4 people or something. You just have a reference. Each one gets an electrode and a reference electrode, and they can share a common ground, I think.
And the stuff that we were talking about at a meeting earlier this week was that's one of the strengths of OpenBCI, is that you can have, each channel can supposedly have its own reference, and that's what allows you to do EEG, EMG, and like EKG at the same time. And so I think we have an intern that's going to try to do that.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was like, because she's already going through and hi, I'm Richard, by the way. I'm just a low-level software developer at OpenBCI. I just help with general things and the website and stuff. But she's going through the docs and making sure they're good to go for this year. And then I said, you know, it'd be nice to really get a hybrid doc for everybody, because I think a lot of people are interested in that. And what's the guy who presented earlier? It doesn't say your name.
A BIC, like a BIC ballpoint pen. Yeah.
A BIC. Oh, nice.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, excited to hear that OpenBCI was able to help you get started. And, you know, it's something that you can have around, and hope it's our hope that we can make even more tools and activities for everybody, so that it doesn't just sit in your closet. You know, you can pull it out and you can participate in like the OpenBCI challenge that we're working on.
Yeah, no,
and maybe really we want to start doing games, and so I'm excited to participate in the neurogaming conference. I'm excited to learn and see what the big dogs have to say.
Yeah, no, that's super cool because I know that with the OpenXR, standards coming out as well, the connectors for different kind of pieces of hardware should be readily available. And yeah, out of the box experience as far as having the hardware to visualization software to applications on top of that definitely was very nice. I'm just being slow because, when there's a nice end-to-end system and then you want to, make tweaks, and then of course it gets harder as you dive into it. I'm not that skilled enough that everything is easy for me now. So I'm just going down those rabbit holes progressively.
Jaden's here on the call. He's doing a lot of heavy lifting with the EEG notebooks, and so is John, who's also here. And they're I think Jaden's a software guy. John is more of a neuroscience guy, and it's taken both of them to refine it. Yeah. Nobody here is got it. We all need a little help.
Yeah, and collaborate. Yeah, because it is definitely just me banging my head against things and being
and Jaden's just focusing on the software side of things, and we're picking up the slack, by making an open access hardware system at OpenBCI. So that's the, that's the trick. Then the other trick that we would have to deal with, which Morgan has brought up many times, is how do you know, even in the lab, where the electrodes are? I mean, they might be right here instead of right here, and we're just gonna have to hope for the best for the first time around.
Exactly. I've actually been messing with some photogrammetry recently and sort of looking at.
Yeah, is that verified with the photo?
Exactly, and just being just kind of how you import a model and then UV skin it down to a 2D plane and saying okay, this is maybe how this is configured, but also, depending on your experiment, you can tolerate different amounts of, how off it is, and being able to communicate oh, we need this level of precision for this kind of application. It'd be totally fine for some things, less so for others, but love to nerd out about this kind of stuff. So thank you, Morgan, for sending over the invite and so we can all hang out. Yeah.
So that's actually one of the many systems that I would love to see us have some good working solutions. Is a handheld photogrammetry system for electrode positions. And so I brought this up on our, the SF group is, I want to kind of call it old school at this point, in the sense that we have a Facebook group. we're organized as a Facebook Messenger group. I don't know. Anyway, I posted these recently. So Robert Oostenwald, who's the huge name in EEG, MEG, and EEG processing with the field trip package, has a 2018 paper that I will find, and this is using the occipital structure scanner. So this is an iPad. It's an iPad add-on device, and here, give me 1 second to see if I've actually got this tab already.
Man, that's cool, because I know that Intel had a version of their RealSense depth sensing system that was also an iPad add-on, and just seeing iPad add-ons as accessible ways of getting hardware to consumers.
Well, so I mean, I mentioned this, and Ryan, who's on that group, was oh yeah, well, there are other devices. Oh, here, let me just but what I was gonna just point out is that right now, researchers will pay or it used to be that researchers would pay thousands of dollars for a 3D localization tool, right? So, I mean, certainly, I'm probably dating myself, but Paul Hemus EM trackers used to be the go-to device. I dropped a link to Robert's paper. So this is using the occipital's little device, and but you can see what he's doing there, right? So we've got down the ground floor of my house. I've got a massive geodesic dome of 11 cameras and an actual arm device that would lift that up and drop it down over your head. that EGI built. So I can drop a link for that. So
did they ever make something like that for sale, or I guess commercial sale only?
Oh no! This was for sale, man. This was and it was not cheap. Here, let me.
You have it at your house?
I do. Yeah. You know,
your kids are gonna say, kids are gonna tell you, Daddy, I want to get a special selfie, and your kids are gonna say, Hey, Daddy, I want to use the camera for a special selfie.
Oh, trust me, they walk past that, they're like, I don't even want to know what that is.
How big is the file that it makes?
Well, so it's not a big file. Here, let me just because it is.
I guess does it like compile it into a 3D model or something?
Honestly, I don't see it on the webpage anymore. Let me just see.
Oh, you're looking for the device?
Well, I would just like to show a picture if I could. Like, why is photogrammetry not? Oh, okay. Wait. And anyway, the Roberts paper is
Yeah, I checked it out a little bit, and it looks like they were using structured light to be able to figure out. And I found this open source tool for photogrammetry that I did not realize how easy it was now to do the whole pipeline. And I did some tests, and I was like, "Oh, this is very exciting."
So this is cool because actually the brochure that I found is awesome, in that it shows the successor, right? So what you see here above is the geodesic photogrammetry system.
You need to share your screen.
Oh, sorry, I dropped it in the chat, but I can.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I can share it too.
Oh, I see it. That's exciting.
And it's why is it not letting me make that bigger? So sorry, I can't make that bigger right this second. Or at least it's maybe frozen my browser. But
why does the person look so sad?
Because they're probably like,
why didn't they?
I think I can give you the backstory to that. It's like, Dad, what have you made me do?
Wow.
Like,
both of them.
So, but it's cool, right? So the Geoscan device is the successor. Okay, so that's where you've got this what they're it's kind of like a wand, I mean, it's like holding a Kinect camera on its side, right? But that's a Northern Digital camera. So I think the Geoscan device, this is like a couple years old, but was probably still like $20,000. So even if you've got a device that's $500, this is it makes quite a difference in terms of what they what your costs are.
It seems as though with the resolution of like smartphones these days, you should be able to just do it from your smartphone camera.
You can. So I've actually done a lot of photogrammetry over the past 7 years, starting with a couple of open source tools that are from researchers who now mainly work at Google. And phone-based stuff, it used to, with a decent laptop with CUDA, it took about 30 minutes to get a good head resolution scan, but it was hard back then because the UI for the tools was pretty bad. There's a couple newer open source-ish photogrammetry tool sets that are pretty good. And for me, I require offline utilization of it, which actually limits the usability of a lot of photogrammetry professional grade software because they require you to upload it to its cloud. Like I've worked with Matterport and have 3D scanned a couple historical nonprofits in the Bay Area, as well as we've had someone use a Tango phone, like that single phone that had photogrammetry based scanners in it to 3D scan our space a couple years ago. And it's improved tremendously since then. Just recently, one of the best free phone-based solutions just got bought out and is shutting down, which is really annoying, but I never used it because I saw that what their business model was to be bought out and throw everyone who used their software under the bus, which in photogrammetry is constant. Autodesk has built and killed off about 8 different photogrammetry softwares, including 4D Catch 5 years ago or stuff. That was the first good phone-based one where you take a 360 video around an object, upload it to Autodesk, they'd send you the 3D model after about 5 hours.
I use Mushroom and it runs locally nice. But something that I'm really excited about is with all of the research papers coming out enabling augmented reality applications, like Magic Leap's Super Glue and Superpoint for key point finding using deep learning and feature matching using deep learning. I am excited about how many open tools there are for things that used to be proprietary and patented, and to hopefully get things out of startups who patent things and then let it die inside of large companies that acquire them. Tear inducing.
Yeah, because Apple, Facebook, Google, Uber, Lyft, a lot of photogrammetry stuff was bought up by the self-driving car industry, including Ford, BMW. Right now, there's not that many good, usable, tools, but there's a lot of research going on the developing them, and it can make a big difference in usability for inside out tracking for AR and VR, world reconstruction in VR in real time. To do mixed reality is something that the HTC Pro is really good at doing, which means you can walk around a real room that's been instantaneously 3D scanned into VR, and you can sit down on chairs. You can also actually throw and or set virtual objects on different things. The Vive developer blog about a year and a half ago, they figured out occlusion, So you could actually throw things off the wall and have it bounce off of the back of a object in real life and then keep going and come back to you. Same with, like, I think they did a boomerang demo at one point, but all this stuff, if you turn it towards a person's head, can do a lot of the same stuff. That's why I'm trying to remember the software package one of my friends is using to look at the face and try to figure out emotions from it. But if you combine something like that with EEG and you start to understand how our face muscles move with EEG like data as well, you could start to use EEG data to say what the face is doing at some point, probably. I don't think I've read any papers that have actually tried figuring that out recently, but that's, I think, a pretty cool use case to figure out muscle movement just from an EEG scan with the face, because the face has so many muscles.
So many different pieces. I was reading the link that was just posted in the chat about using a photogrammetry system to determine the location of electrodes on the head. And I was wondering, so let's say it is slightly off, and how do you guys, what's the normal way to do basically positional mapping? So saying, oh, is it like the reference point is from the bridge of the nose to these two anatomical features, and then we are able to, say, oh, this is in this coordinate system, this is the normal place for it to be, and this is where it was actually measured at, and then we can communicate that. Is there like a normalized coordinate system for placing these electrodes and measuring where they are?
Well,
Yeah.
the standard landmarks are, like you said, bridge of the nose, and then the kind of back of each ear, and the back of the head sometimes as well.
Yeah.
But the main thing that this kind of system has been used for, I guess you could say traditionally, is co-registering someone's head, but specifically the locations of the EEG centers in relation to the head with an MRI. So you can extract like your head from an MRI, and the MRI also has your brain in it. Right? So if you can figure out where, like in relation to the MRI representation of the head, the EEG sensors are, then you have most of what you need to have a go at solving the electromagnetic inverse problem, and that's and you have where the brain is as well. So that's like the kind of high tech place that a lot of this is coming from. Like Morgan was saying, Polhemus and these fancy devices that had higher tech kind of solutions to that, just mapping the EEG, channels to the head part of that problem. Now that's been driven down, but the other kind of alternative here, which is kind of implied by the low tech option, is to not use an MRI, okay? And just kind of have basically like a poor man's inverse solution, poor man's source estimate, and use templates, so use kind of canonical brains that you can kind of slightly reshape and stretch and skew and whatever relative to the head shape, and have an idea of. And that the reason that's not a terrible thing to do with EEG, because EEG, the resolution of your source reconstruction is a little bit coarse anyway, so it's not out of this world. The thing that I'm curious about, and I definitely want to know this because I want to use this camera thing, is how much are you losing by not having the MRI at all? what is the improvement in, what is the discrepancy between having an MRI versus using one of the canonical templates for the source reconstruction once you have the mapping. And because people do that a lot, and it'd be great if that works well, because then you don't need to do an MRI, which is like the most expensive part of doing a high grade research EEG study or MEG study. It's always like spending $500 a subject on getting an MRI. So if you can bypass that step reasonably well, then that's great. But it's a question. Someone will know the answer to this somewhere. I don't know the answer.
Sure. I mean,
go ahead, Morgan. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, certainly with the older devices, a lot of times the data, it could be actually quite hard to collect good, accurate data. And obviously, like if you don't have accurate data, then obviously, use a standard head model and just use your distances from Bayesian to Indian and ear to ear and resize that standard head, right? Big problem with the Polhemus is that any metal in the room could distort the electromagnetic field that it's setting up. And so if you weren't collecting that in a really like noise-free environment, I mean, I've seen data sets that included Polhemus data, but if you viewed those in 3D, like that's not a head shape, and then it's like obviously you don't want to be trying to fit garbage. In terms of like that next step of showing that like having coordinates versus not having coordinates, using a standard template coordinates versus positions. I don't know if anybody's, I'd love a reference on that.
Because one of the things that could be useful, and probably someone's probably done this because it seems obvious, but it seems obvious and it seems like the kind of thing that a certain kind of group of people would do is to try and like generate brains from faces, so you just take if you just take the counterpart out of that second and just say like take a bunch of MRIs, extract the face from the MRI and then train a deep net to reconstruct the brain from the face, right? And see how well you can reconstruct the brain from a face. And then that's basically the problem, and that's what maybe ultimately the solution would be is and maybe that's what the current solutions are. I don't know, but some kind of decent job of creating like your individualized brain from the nuances of the shape of your skull and your scalp.
Right? Yeah, and just like an overall, basically 3D bust.
Well, so I work in a lab with ultra-high field magnetic resonance imaging, and we build coils. And our main issue is to have a coil that is conform to the head size, the skull size, actually. And we tried multiple ways to try to estimate like the skull and whether there's a relation with the brain. At least for older subjects, usually the brain doesn't have any association how the skull looks. I don't know about younger subjects because older subjects, they get their brain, they get some hypertrophy, they have some kind of loss of volume, and the brain doesn't look like the skull. For younger subject, and I'm here speaking with anecdotal evidence, the younger subject, they look like the brain will match almost the skull shape, but I think for younger subjects it might work. And to answer about whether the camera can really replicate if we can use the camera very, if we can use the camera for electrode placement for the EKG, yeah, it's also the same concept. I think for younger people, we can say that we can use some kind of canonical shape and some kind of template. But again, for older subject, since the brain loses some of its volume, it might be less accurate than having a MRI of the skull.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely would have to use something like, you know, the brain age prediction to you know, be able to generate a brain for a subject, because, you know, yeah, you're gonna see that increase in relative contribution of CSF and you know, gray white as older brains are changing. But I'm at least coming up. I'm not finding a good, like, you should collect. You know, you should get
This distance, that distance.
yeah, and like, and show that there's an improvement. I mean, some of it also comes down to what you're going to do with that data, right? So what you kind of mean by that, or, you know, what you might mean by that is, I'm going to try and source localize this activity, right? And so this is where, you know, like, because source localization of EEGs, or, you know, certainly EEG, I mean, MEG as well, but it really comes down to, like, how many channels did you use? And MEG is just usually good because it has a lot of channels. And, you know, so if you've got low channel count data, then your ability to source localize isn't necessarily going to be dramatically improved by having, you know, more robust positions on the head, or, you know, better, more accurate positions on the head.
I'm almost thinking for all kinds of sensors. So saying, if you have an ECG strap and, like, hey, how's that sitting, and how could that change certain features? And of course, I think you're right, where it's like differences in electrode placement is gonna make a difference or not, depending on what kind of, like, feature extraction, what kind of signal processing you do on that waveform. And yeah, looking at everything from, like, GSR, ECG, even optically on, like, my Fitbit and stuff. Hey, exactly how is it sitting and what orientation? Some sort of system to potentially eliminate confounding variables that can get, like, creep in between studies. So saying, oh, I gathered a data set, you gathered a data set. How do we kind of sync up on that? But yeah, of course, very high dimensional, complex problem, nerding out, deep rabbit hole. Sorry.
Yeah, another thing this helps a lot with is ergonomics. Don't know if I've mentioned it in this chat, but when I went to a talk by Microsoft, one of the first public talks about the HoloLens 2, they talked about how they did 3D maps of people's heads, like a couple thousand different people's heads from all over the world, and then used a model to modify the ergonomics of the headset. And just by doing that, they were able to change a couple points of the curvature of their headset by only 2 millimeters. And that 2 or 3 millimeters in terms of how curved it was. And that was enough of a change to allow for them to go from 50% of people can wear this headset to 80%, and go from most of those people can wear it for 2 hours to most of them can wear it for 8 hours. Like, just getting a good image of the head can allow for ergonomics and better pressure placement of things on the head by quite an insane degree.
You remember from Back to the Future, he had the like shoes or the jacket. You just press the button and it just inflated.
Yeah.
And plus, I'm sure fashion people are going to love that. But I have an announcement. I just got my brain waves are now being sent through BrainFlow to Unity.
Nice. Woo. Okay. Hey, that's is Alex Peak on?
I'm looking at the alpha beta ratio, and I'm almost positive it is actually coming from the Cyton this time. The trick I was figuring out was the BrainFlow parameters, and I almost caved in and asked Jaden, but I figured it out myself.
That's cool.
So this
tried to get Alex
stuff in C#.
Okay. Yeah. That's very cool, and yeah, I mean, there's a number of things for VR AR that have been useful to get as Unity assets or Unity plugins, and yeah, I know EEG would definitely be one of them. So
maybe I can log on the call and screen share.
That'd be fire.
Yeah, let me do that.
So I was just bringing up that Smarting amp, partly because it's a wireless amp, partly because and I'll I'll talk to them and find out if they're going to make the webinar. Now that it's passed, like it shows it as upcoming, but it was today, and their website is just not updated. And but I've talked to the CEO about joining us on the Paris Hack Night, and so if they don't make that webinar available, hopefully he'll join us in Paris, and we get to see that. Just in terms of making EEG work when you're on a bike or you're doing physical activity, which is some of the presentation, and they've definitely got some of that on their website. If you just follow the M Brain Train, and of course there was the Moby Awards were this just like last month that also had some great papers. This was put on by Brain Products, which is a research EEG company, and had some great examples of they did a competition and a paper competition with some great examples of mobile EEG in some really extreme circumstances that was cool. But I wanted to get to updates on some existing projects, and as usual, we're not following any kind of agenda. I'm not sure what 7:30 was supposed to be, but John, would you have any updates for us on various EEG notebook related issues?
Just minor kind of steps forward on a few things, but we did get Joe to apparently successfully run the BrainFlow thing. So running the BrainFlow notebooks, so the kind of BrainFlow version of EEG notebooks with OpenBCI, with relatively little pre-knowledge, and apparently works. So that was like a good first test run for the kind of thing we need for this competition. Is something kind of doable.
He was on a Mac, right?
No, he's in Windows.
No, he's in Windows. Okay.
I'm testing on the Mac.
Okay, Chris, right? That's right. Okay.
We had a user come in with Windows 7, and BrainFlow is not compatible with Windows 7. And Andre's reasoning behind that is that
I don't
yeah.
think anybody should be using Windows.
Is that Windows is not supporting it?
Yeah.
That's the reasoning.
You're doing a public service by not supporting it.
Okay, that's reassuring from the group. Thank you. Anyways, yeah, he's using Windows 10 and it worked.
Hey, Chris, have you run an experiment?
Yeah, so yeah, it's working on Mac. There are some issues that I'm documenting, and I don't know if we should take it offline. But bottom line, at the end, the cleanup session instructions, like when you close everything and clean up, is supposed to save a CSV file on a data folder, and that has to be tweaked a bit. But all in all, it's working.
Because
that belongs in like the documents. I'll let Jaden and I'll let y'all figure out where that file belongs. But
I'm sorry. What was the problem?
Yeah, it's partly a documentation thing, and maybe we should take this offline or meet up on the details for tomorrow. But it's described in issue 2 on a GitHub, and I suggested some solutions.
I'll check it out.
Just so people, well, this is.
Did you try all of the? There's 3 experiments.
No, I got on N170, and then I want to be sure that I identify the problem. Probably it's the same problem all over. When you try to close the experiment sequence and save the CSV file, I am expecting that it's the same issue throughout.
Okay. Well, still, this is great. I mean, at least we're in the loop of identifying these, and so just anybody who's on, we're talking about EEG notebooks. I just dropped in the link to the NeurotechX GitHub, where we're actually testing a different version in Jaden's GitHub that uses BrainFlow, that gives us so the same EEG notebooks are compatible with OpenBCI hardware, as well as a couple other boards, including GTEx Unicorn. And yeah, so I was still, sorry.
I was going to say the other thing that is worth knowing for people who are, tracking things is I'm pushing some of the updates now to the main repo, not the master branch of the main repo, but the refactor branch. But I'm kind of trying to initiate the process of bringing things home. And that'll take a little bit of time, but not too long. So there'll be, ultimately, it's the BrainFlow Notebooks repo is great, and it's great because it's kind of does a great job, and it's kind of self-contained. It's cleaner than the EEG Notebooks one, but we don't want to be having 2 parallel things.
Yeah.
In a big way, we need to kind of merge them back together. So I'm kind of starting that process right now.
Sure.
Chris, which issue are you saying that it was in GitHub?
So, Jenny, if you look at the issues, it's issue number 2, the one with the text CSV. It starts with CSV something. I can open it up and.
Yeah, I pushed a fix to that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So, do you want to go into the details now, or you prefer tomorrow?
Sure. Whenever works, or if you just want to put them on the issue there, just because I posted them there 2 weeks ago, and I assumed that if nothing had updated in there, that it was working.
Yeah, I think there is. I think it was great. There is a little bit more work to do on that, and then it has to do with the suggested solutions. But we can take it offline for the sake of time.
Yeah, just share it and just keep posting in the issue then, so we can keep track of it and keep tracking it.
Yeah, basically the upgrade to have the file saved in a correct way doesn't change. Basically, it has to be. I can send a pull request basically.
Sure, that works.
Yeah, I think it's the best. The pull request is the best venue to describe the issue, because then I can go into the details.
Well, that'd be awesome if we could see that before tomorrow.
Tomorrow I'll be able to comment on the details. It's unlikely that it's gonna happen. So yeah, it's 11 o'clock in the evening here.
No, totally. Again, I'm always super appreciative of all you guys to join us from the East Coast. So no worries.
Morgan, are you going to do some testing with the Muse?
Yes.
On Windows?
I can pull out my Windows.
Yeah.
So my son has grabbed one of my Windows laptops as a gaming, but it's okay. I've got one. I've tested on a what do they call their iPad-ish, like
a
Surface Pro. I got a Surface Pro. I can test that on.
I got it. I tested it out on Windows and used yesterday as well, and had it working.
I mean, I can test on Mac too, and yeah, I've got my wife's Mac. That's what I tried before.
Yeah, that would be. Jaden, have you made any progress with Muse on Linux?
No, not yet. I was focusing on updating the loading and visualization notebooks first, and so I'll start working on the Linux stuff again.
Yeah. So Muse on Mac probably isn't going to work yet, but Muse on Windows should be working now.
Yeah.
And Muse on Mac and Linux is will need a little bit more work.
John, I have a question about Muse on Mac. To have it working, whatever backend you use, you still need a dongle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are these the ones only?
It works for the Muse too as well.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they had discontinued their API or whatever. How are y'all still able to access it?
Oh, this is using
Use LSL.
Use LSL.
Yeah. Somebody hacked his way around.
Yeah. So it's basically using PyGat to with this particular Bluetooth dongle. This Blue Giga.
Somebody found a way around.
Yeah. Or that's the only way out.
So it's like an unofficial.
The Neurotech community kind of worked around Muse's failure to provide a decent API.
And if you hack things like that, you are hired by Facebook.
So it's still I'd really like to know if there's an equivalent for emotive, and if anybody is there an emotive LSL? Actually, I should just check.
Isn't there a certain amount of risk connected with that in terms of liability from emotive? Because emotive has a business model that sells, makes it a per pay model.
So that's what I wasn't sure of. I mean, so are we not? So what? I mean, because I know. If you've got a commercial application with Muse, then you're supposed to use their SDK.
Okay.
But I assumed that we were in the kind of like what an individual user is doing for, when it's not for business purpose is fine. I don't know whether that's the same for So you'll see it there, Abik. It's right in the the EEG notebooks.
It's in the LSL.
I mean, just So if you check the requirements for EEG notebooks, and the Python packages that you need, and Muse LSL is kind of like the connectivity layer. And
yeah, because I was looking at there's the Muse 2, but then there's also the Muse S, which apparently recently came out and does long battery life as well as some other sensors. And maybe I'll dive into there and see if does it just like parse out a big packet with all the sensor data, and then you can just like parse out, they probably just appended fields to that packet to include the additional sensors they included. Does it kind of work like that?
You talking about like accelerometers and stuff?
They apparently added a PPG sensor, and you can get breath monitoring out of that, as well as general pulse oximetry.
The PPG is also available in the Muse 2.
Ooh, very exciting. You know if people have been able to get that out of it?
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, I did. I played around with it. Yes.
So and I mean, this was definitely one of the things I wanted to bring up with Free EG32, which was just a question about the files that it produces. So now, in this case, I've never seen anybody try and make or try and write out BDF or EDF files with. I mean, we're using just CSVs, right? In the bids, in bids or in EDF itself, is there any guidance of what you're supposed to do with these additional channels? I mean, I know that there are stim channels. Is there anything about including, other data
in those formats?
I would assume there is, but I don't know off the top of my
head. And quick question about the Muse 2, or like if anyone has a Muse, do they work while they're charging? So
yes, or that was what. Yes, I mean and only because Abby said that. Somebody asked that question. Yeah.
Yeah, my approach to wearables is if you can technically carry it around, it's a wearable, and so definitely okay with having a battery pack always plugged in.
So Morgan, I'm looking at the EEG bids PDF right now for the publication, and it looks like they do allow for defining different types of channels as well, like list the EOG channel, for example, in this one.
Yeah. I'm just what I'm trying to get is like how that's exactly what I was starting to look at, and just wanted to see, because right now so if anybody is interested, there is a free G32 Slack for those who are interested in working on that board, and of course the software that will be needed to support it. So just let me know if you are interested, or get in touch with Josh, who is.
Hey, I'm back.
Hey, who set that Slack up for us, and so Bernard has made a couple BDF files available. So he's working on a 2-channel system but today gave us a 16-channel file that's using his his flexible net that will be really interesting to play with.
You've got coming in a few days too.
And
he's working on like UTL SpongeNet version.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Yeah. But currently when I'm opening those up, I'm always getting the 3 accelerometer channels at the bottom, and just trying to decide whether that is, I've never actually seen. I'm used to research systems where it's like we've got a lot of channels, but they're all EEG channels, or channels used for referencing or giving guidance to the EEG signal. so wasn't quite sure what should be happening to that, or yeah, just want to. Anyway, I see that there is an emotive LSL as well. At least the project exists, and
would you like to share the link?
Sure.
Is everybody knowing if the BrainFlow supports also PyGAT in any of their devices?
Sorry, say again, Chris.
I was wondering if BrainFlow per se supports devices that use Bluetooth Low Energy.
Yes, I believe so, because isn't GTEx Unicorn a Bluetooth Low Energy?
Yeah, I'm not sure how the data is retrieved though. Because there is always the question, you know, if you want to read out your data, do you do it through the USB or do you do it through, you know, BLE?
So.
Hey, Joe, just call me.
Are you know much about BrainFlow's Bluetooth Low Energy support?
I know it was hard to get the ganglion to work with the little BLED dongle. It wasn't. What was the first barrier? I think it was getting an MIT license library to work with that. When I was asking Andre like how BrainFlow works with the serial port with the Cyton, I was like, hey, maybe there's something iffy with the this underlying serial port library, and he said there is none. I guess basically the C++ talks directly to the serial port some way. But BLE is a tricky beast. I'm sure whoever did the Muse LSL thing already got into that.
Well, I mean, you know, one of the issues that we have with the Muse LSL is that, at least on Mac, the guidance is to comment some code out. And so
yeah, and as Morgan, to add on top of what you're saying, if you think about the architecture of the BrainFlow notebooks, you have currently a spurious implementation of the modules, because when you want to use the Muse inside the notebooks, you have to use an independent library, whereas the whole reason to include BrainFlow in the project was to have a backend layer that manages the devices independently from you know the machine learning layer sitting on top of that.
Yeah.
So and this adds complexity to the project, and it's not maintainable, and blah 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 and so
on. Absolutely, and you know, so I mentioned this to John, and was hoping that it would be easy to get BrainFlow working with Muse, and you know, certainly it's not currently, and Andre wanted you know, wanted to be able to get some Interaxon support on that, or you know, like I think
terms of license.
Well, that might be the problem, you know. So certainly that was what I believe Jaden and John were doing in terms of making that class kind of agnostic of whether you're using Muse LSL or BrainFlow. To you know, that was the solution, and you know, and what I've got that we, you know, that I'd like to throw in the mix is like, well, let's see how currently getting data from FreeEG32 and see if this IPython notebook that I've got as an example can be also included in this new kind of, you know, hardware agnostic class. And
got it.
You know, it's not. Yeah, I was also hoping that BrainFlow would be this abstraction layer. but I'd love to, you know, that it would be great if again, like it also supported, you know, I go to Emotive, but there's lots of other wireless systems, right? So, I mean, I don't know how many units and Brain Train is sold of Smarting, but you know, there's like there's Be Alert and Biopack and I can come up with more. There was the Neurospec that somebody brought up. Yeah, there's a lot more systems that I'd love to see supported, and I don't think anything's become the default. I mean, like honestly, I see a lot more adoption of LSL than anything.
Yeah, and that's great. On the other hand, LSL also adds its level of complication on top of the hardware of the drivers. You know,
absolutely. Now, the added benefit, and you know, that I was evangelizing to APIC. You know, it was like the benefit of going through that trouble is that now, if you've got 5 devices that don't share a clock, that this LSL layer or you know, LSL streams can give you a, you know, a network clock that allows you to combine these data streams, which, you know, certainly is the case. I mean, you know, more so in wearables than anything. You know, in research systems, we're kind of used to like demanding wires and you know, demanding things like what I noticed on the free G32 board, which is like there's no TTLs. You know, there's no way that I can just send in something.
Oh yeah. I understand the need of you know, background common clock, and that's great because LSL does that in a fantastic way. But the driver inclusion and abstraction is a different issue. That is, to me at least, I don't see why it should be related to LSL.
I think it's just fallen. I mean, that's what I think adds to the complexity of LSL, or you know, that's what you see when you see the LSL project. You see like 25 projects, right? Because it's like it's people writing their hardware acquisition and then connecting it to LSL and then calling that an app. Yeah, so this is why I was like super interested to try and get I think it's Chad Boulay from Ottawa, or you know, even better to get like Christian Kurta to come talk about LSL and you know, find out more about you know, I still hope that maybe like that there's some open source benefits that are coming from NeuroPipe, because you know, this is what Christian and Tim Mullen, their companies focused on NeuroPipe, right? And yeah, whether you know, they certainly deal with a lot of different hardware devices, and I don't know if they've got any better solutions, that the people who are managing that, or what they're planning for you know, a dramatically different version. But it's a big problem, and
so implicitly I understand that in order to have a Bluetooth low energy layer to work, you should have some sort of you know, background synchronization, or some background layer that runs some kind of clock because of this loss of packages from the Bluetooth. So it's something that you cannot decouple. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Sorry, say again. Somebody who's just having some connectivity problems. So ask that again, Chris.
my understanding why you shouldn't be able to decouple the driver layer from the Lsl layer at the Bluetooth low energy level, and correct me if I'm wrong, has to do with the fact that Bluetooth low energy loses packages or packets.
Yeah, I mean, like again, I also said this, which is like, if the faster we can kill Bluetooth, the better. Or I haven't actually worked with it properly in like 5 years, and but that was certainly the notorious problem with Neuroelectric's first. StarStem was a real problem with Bluetooth packet loss originally, and it was only solved when they moved to Wi-Fi. So at the same time, like, I also see like so many cool smaller wearable projects that like have to use Bluetooth, and so but maybe they don't also have to carry millisecond accurate multi-channel EEG. So
got it.
Yeah, from a hardware perspective, Wi-Fi just takes so much more power than Bluetooth does. So it definitely eats into your budget a lot. Although it is so much more high performance and it is like very nice, but potentially seeing, if you want, having to sacrifice on the performance front and the packet dropping front for, maybe additional latency or the sort, and having to have a higher level communication structure that can abstract away, is this a packet that I need? Did I drop a packet in between? Or these are all timestamped and the sort. But again, that's just overhead that is needed to make up for the shortcomings of the protocol in this use case. It's very good at low power stuff. They try hard. But,
so, and again, like, this is why I'm super excited and really really interested to see what we can do with free EG32, in the sense that, like, this is a board. I mean, just for people who aren't familiar with I think that Neuroelectric's is a great, it's a great research system to shoot for, or to use as a bar, because it's such a
Could you post a link to their work?
Yeah, just let me get, here we go.
Oh, and Richard, I was checking it out. There is an Lsl layer for Oculus, and I think that they use the Unity game engine for it, and that was cool to see. I don't know if you checked that out. I'm not good at C#, so I've just been using prepackaged things. But have you seen that? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Nope.
I'll send it in the chat.
And so I put in the StarStem, and the reason I bring it up, and the reason I brought up the smarting device, the reason I brought up smart BCI earlier, was just trying to show these 32 channel systems that are obviously battery powered. And I'm really curious of, like, what kind of battery length we can get on the system. Like, how long can we be recording, and in particular, if we're using Wi-Fi. StarStem is also potentially doing TES. Like, it's you can inject current as well.
That's very, very interesting. Like,
yeah, it's
the same, on the same battery they inject also the current.
I know that this is.
Oh my goodness! You should look at the picture. It looks like it goes all around the back, so they could put a lot of battery in there, maybe.
Exactly.
If the board is only the size of my palm, then they could just fill the rest up with battery, I guess. I'm looking at. Let me.
And that's
32. Their picture at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes all across the back and just has enough. Those connectors are really small too. This isn't cheap, I guess, right, Morgan?
This is not an inexpensive system, right? So yeah, but I'm really curious of what the battery life is.
So who buys these things? Like labs that are doing neuroscience only research pretty much, and they want to do studies for X number of years. They already know, I guess, right?
Exactly. So this is what Adam Ghazali's lab at UCSF is using for a wireless system.
How long do they expect them to last? Is that
multi-year for sure? Yeah, I mean, well, different parts have different like lifetimes. So you'll buy your caps and your electrodes. So this is why, I mean, this is different, but it's related to what I was talking about with biosemi in the sense that like you put you assemble your system when you're going to use it. You know what I mean? And part of that is that you've got to, these do have dry, or certainly used to have dry systems, but pretty much researchers are still using these wet, and so you've got to have a good cleaning solution. So it means you got to separate the electrodes from the cap. Anyway,
so on their data sheet of technical specifications, it says for the 32 channel one, it's 4 hours, and 4 hours for the 32, 20, and then 4.5 hours for the 8 channel and the other 8 channel one. But that's over Wi-Fi, and then if you use USB, then it increases the battery life a lot.
Sure, and there's what says in the spec, and there's what performance you get in the lab. Which
they must have paid a lot of money for an isolator for the USB to be plugged in at the same time, because that's one of the big no-nos with OpenBCI gear. You're not supposed to.
Sure.
But I know there's a way around that, because that's how medical equipment has to work without shocking people.
Yeah. So you can.
Those parts are expensive.
On top of things, it's MRI compatible. That's.
Oh. That means there's no real metal parts in it.
Well, no. So again, like MRI compatible, typically means that you've got a cable solution. So it has a lot more. It has a lot more to do with what you see there in the multi-channel MRI extension kit.
Yeah.
Right, is that you're using fiber in some way, and a lot of systems they're still using the same electrodes, and one of the biggest problems with EEG and the magnet is that you actually you're going to get worse EEG because of the magnet. You're going to get worse MRI because of the EEG. Because you've introduced metal into this scanner board.
It depends on your shielding in terms of MRI, but the EEG signal is very noisy. We tried to do 2 channels, it doesn't work. I think we need more channels. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, so around the electrodes, what you'll get is like some signal loss around the electrodes. So the MRI, instead of being the smooth surface, it'll have these little holes around where the electrodes are, and well, and this is also why I really want to push free EG32 boards to test what kind of sampling rate we can achieve. Just because if you are going to, one of the things about recording in the magnet, again, it's kind of about having the cables. It's not exactly about having different electrodes, and obviously, you try and get rid of as much metal as you can, but but still, most people are still using sintered silver chloride electrodes. And
Morgan, I have a question. So this 32 EEG board you're talking about, is there like a website for it, or do you have
yeah. So and what time we got? Okay, because I wanted to well, should I do the crowd supply or the?
I'm calling it a night. Have a good night, guys.
Most information.
Good night, Chris. There, so yeah, and then that has the that links to the GitHub as well.
Yep.
And
there's not much on the GitHub yet.
Is there not? Oh, okay. Then I can, check
description.
Yeah. So, So if you are going to record in the magnet, then you want to have a much faster sampling rate, and it's really to later remove the MRI artifacts. It's not to improve the it's not that you need it for the human EEG signals.
Can you repeat that about the sampling rate? Sorry, it was cutting.
So a lot of the MRI artifact removal routines require that you're sampling at like 5 kilohertz, so that you can accurately characterize the MRI signal artifacts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so it's useful. It's useful to have that super fast sampling rate if you can. Again, like most people are going to use a wired EEG system in an MRI. They're not going to do a wireless setup with battery pack. So there's a lot you can already drop, obviously, right? But super interested to do that, and and the people who can do even more important is like, can you do TES or TMS in the magnet? It is super awesome if you can do it. It's technically challenging. I posted.
There's a big safety issue, especially with the TMS.
Sure. But what is it, like Medical University of South Carolina has been doing it for a very long time, and I posted in the Slack their webinar. So they were definitely the first group that I ever saw, presenting about that, and it's got to have been like, honestly, like feels like it was like 20 years ago. But I did think that they were crazy at the time. like damn. It's cool. It's cool because it doesn't have to move, right? So like what people would do is like they put the coil in the headrest, for instance, of the scanner, and so that's super important, is that it's not moving. The problem with EEG on a person's head is getting them to not move. because every time they move, that's creating a different, different kind of heterogeneity in the magnetic field.
Hey, I just saw that the other Alex was able to just join.
Hello.
Richard, do you know if you're able to show any of the Unity stuff you worked on yet, or is it hard to figure out how to screen?
I'm currently trying to access a method that I made public from one script in another script without calling it, and I'm learning Unity and C# basically.
Yeah.
If you have Unity questions, I can help.
Yeah. Are you able to share your screen?
If you want to hit me up on the Discord, I'm happy to screen share and try to help you sort out whatever Unity issue you're having.
Okay, I'll get help offline from you.
Because I want to learn about what you're doing anyway. So.
Can you call? Do you know how to do what I just said? Which was, I've got a script here, and I need to call that method.
Yeah. So assuming that they're both mono behaviors in a Unity scene, the typical pattern for doing that is either having a reference to the other script or having a singleton pattern where you just call the script.instance.
So the script that I'm trying to pull from is named brainflow data C whatever. And
so you need to create a variable in the other script with a variable of type brainflow data, and then you need to either drag and drop it in the scene, or typically that's how you would do it. If they're both mono behavior scripts, are they mono behavior scripts? Are they on objects, or are they just floating in space?
Oh snap! Actually, well, one of them is it says it extends a job component system.
Oh, are you using the new ECS?
I am doing a Pong example that's supposed to be with dots.
Okay, so dots is a whole new ball game. Everything I just said doesn't apply. I've not actually done anything with dots yet.
Stuff with the latest framework. It's
I'd be learning right along with you when it comes to dots. I've done the tutorials. I've done the basic dots examples, but it was kind of in one ear, out the other at this point. Well, dots is cool, but it's way harder than you need for what. Let me put it this way: you do not need dots. The only reason you need dots is if you need to get like a 50 to 100x performance improvement on something.
Oh, really?
Almost nobody needs dots. Dots is great, and if you want to learn it right the first time, I'm happy for anyone who's learning dots and doesn't know the old system and just oh, dots isn't that hard. I don't know why anyone thinks it's weird, but the old system is really, really easy to use.
Well, you know what I like about this example in the Pong mixing my ping and Pong. In the first Pong example I did, it said, hey, there's a camera here at this point of the screen and one here, and that's how he checked collisions. But this dots example just seems to let Unity handle the collisions, and it's 3D instead of 2D. So I'm kind of
none of that is dot specific. Basically, what dots takes away from you is a real easy to understand game object hierarchy. So if you're used to web dev, where you just have a what do you call it? What's the web equivalent? The hierarchy.
HTML hierarchy.
No, the DOM. If you're used to any kind of web dev where you have something called the DOM, document object model, which is just this big nice tree of stuff, corresponds to tags. That stops existing with ECS, right? So in normal Unity game objects, it's very intuitive. You have objects, they're childed to each other, but that creates overhead. There's unnecessary information processing involved in that. And what ECS or dots gives you is the ability to have 1 million flying cars in one city, or 1 million if you're visualizing let's say point clouds, if you're getting really high res brain scan data and you want to visualize.
What if I want every person that has an OpenBCI board to play in dimensional Pong of a thing that becomes a circle, and then we're all just trying to keep the ball in the middle?
Yeah, if you want to do complex visualization and have over 100 players, then ECS is a good choice.
But I'm going to stick with this dots example for now, and I guess I'll help online, and I'll get connected with you on Discord so we don't lose the messages within Slack. Anyways, let me go ahead and it's weird. I have to look at myself from the side.
But did you get LSL working in Unity yet?
I'm not doing it. I'm doing BrainFlow.
BrainFlow is different from LSL?
It's just
okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is something acquiring data from a number of different headsets. So it's different than Muse LSL that was very much developed for that one particular headset.
Cool.
Something that we're
So is he using it with OpenBCI? That's awesome.
So he's using it with OpenBCI. Richard's with OpenBCI.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Okay, and but it does work with some other manufacturers, including G-Tech, their 8-channel unicorn system, and
cool.
Yeah, I don't know how many people caught G-Tech's recent BCI summer school, which was awesome. Good night, Nadim. So I dropped a link in for, I just wanted to mention Brain Web that, sorry, Richard, do you have a,
Yeah, I'll get squared away.
Okay. I just wanted to bring up Brain Web, that I joined their, basically their Jitsi and their Jitsi call on the 15th. Cat is in, Cat's in the house, which was great. And so this is a group that developed a lot of the some of the really eye-catching interactive tools for HBM, together with some of the data lad people, and so it was really nice talking to and like what they were showing off, as you can see, was the number of projects that are off the Brainweb GitHub.io, and they will be doing another hackathon in August, like end of August. And, I was wondering whether, so I talked to Roberto about it in terms of, he'd love to see an EEG project be the focus, or, be a part of that. And it could be, just adding to the documentation of, OpenBCI BrainFlow EEG notebooks.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I was kind of excited. I was like, man, maybe I can get this going before the Neuro Gaming Conference, and then now I'm able to share an actual hack night. So
yeah.
All right, let's do this.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
The next hackathon is Morgan.
You know what would be really interesting would be to pit the brain control against the ML agents neural network training system, because then it's like your brain versus the computer's brain.
Yeah, look, what I thought initially was like, if I can do, can y'all see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, look, so the BrainFlow object has a BrainFlow data script, which is right. Oop, come here. And I don't even have Visual Studio. I can't afford that jazz. So I got it working with Visual Studio Code, and here is the example Andre has just put up.
Visual Studio Community is free, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can get Visual Studio for free.
Okay.
But code works really well too. They both work.
I think if I want to dive deeper into Unity, though, I think I need to take him up on that offer. But Andre just put up a tutorial for getting it involved with Unity, and I'm just doing exactly what he did, replicating the results. So here we go. You can see right here, it's calculating the alpha-beta ratio on just channels 1 and 2. And you see they're all kind of low, and I'm going to blink my eyes a bunch of times. And it sends the signals skyrocketing, and you can see that reflected in the ratio. And so maybe the next thing would be, if you focus on the game, ML agents actually moves the player Like focusing tells the AI to actually play the game for you.
That makes sense because you don't really need to start with like up versus down. You can just start with concentrate versus not concentrate.
Yeah, what I was going to do, see how these numbers get high when I blink my eyes a bunch of times? I was going to say get that value and go ahead and move up or down in some random direction. But this goes into what what's his name said. Psychonaut. What's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan. He was saying that blanks, you know, aren't really that fun to control with.
Yeah.
But here is the alpha beta ratio. He gets the power band for alpha and the power band for beta, and then just divides alpha by beta. Is that good enough? What does that mean? Let's see. What was Andre trying to do here?
I think just
it's just a band power ratio.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that doesn't mean focus, but I guess he was saying, you know.
I think one of the metrics for determining focus is your level of alpha power versus the ratio of alpha power versus beta power.
So, but it obviously messes. Oh, look at my game right here. I don't know what's happening. The ball got stuck or something. It did. That's interesting. Well, there you have it. It's getting the data from the board straight in C#.
Very cool. I gotta do the work to get the Blue Muse stuff to work for my Muse as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm wondering if what other simple things other than like blanks or like simple like focus cues can be used, because since there's probably, I don't know how much it's been researched, but what either shapes, colors, or objects on a screen can trigger a consistent like focus object that gives a common response in EEG.
The Emotive headset had a training mode where you could try to add additional input distinctions, and they started you with a cube, and you had to like make the cube get bigger or make it get smaller, and then make it rotate left and then make it rotate right. And you could just keep trying to push the envelope and get as many distinct axes of input as you could try to manage. And I think I managed to get like maybe 4 dimensions of input, like bigger, smaller, rotate left, rotate right.
Translate, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean they gave you an object and they had you like concentrate on trying to make it do a thing, and the hard part was having it not be ambiguous between one of the inputs and the other. So it helped if you were like contextualizing which of those axes you were trying to use at a time. Like if you weren't trying to use all of them at once, it worked decently well. If you tried to have them all enabled, so you can make the cube bigger or smaller and make it rotate left or make it rotate right and make it go up or make it go down. Like when you turn them all on, it would do stuff that you didn't expect. But if you were just picking one of the axes, it was pretty good at telling which of those 2 axes you had trained it for.
But the thing I'm wondering is, what if you had different objects for each of those types of things, or different colors? Like just something that you can attach to like a thought pattern. Like if you see something blue, that would mean it goes up and down. Or
does anybody have a EEG color?
Like,
say again?
Does anybody have an EEG color correspondence thing working?
What if you?
Like, how easy is it to identify if you're seeing a certain color or shape or something that is easy to identify in EEG.
Flicker. Flicker. This is the basis of steady state VEP, devices, right? So again, like, check out the demos for NextMind, just because they're particularly, it's obviously
By the way, what's happening to the Earth behind you on that screen? Is that a visualization of some kind? There's like a big cloud over the Earth.
Behind me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Folding at Home. That's working on COVID protein things.
I forget. Aren't you part of the Noise Bridge team?
I am. I've got different systems. I'm part of the Noise Bridge and part of the Fedora team.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been checking. We're in the top 5,000 teams at Noise Bridge.
I should go check. I think my beefier GPU system is a Noise Bridge, but it might not be running right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is I talked about this NextMind kit. So this is currently available, and it's a French researchers company. Dry 8 dry electrodes, and it somehow sticks in the back of your head, right? And what it's doing is doing what is pretty standard BCI paradigm of just getting a particular part of the screen to flicker at a particular frequency, and then that is a very is a relatively easy to discriminate signal from background. And
do you know if they're just doing SSVP, or are they doing something like the coded visually evoked potentials like Mind Effect?
Yeah, so I recommend just looking on YouTube and seeing their videos, and like I'd swear I'm looking at like their gaming videos, and the bad guy that you're shooting, I'm pretty sure is flickering. Like I could be wrong, but
so ghost enemies would be really easy to implement.
Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be, so it's the good thing being that you can check the literature for, how many kind of like frequency tagged items you can have available and discriminable. But that's much easier than trying to figure out if somebody's like looking at green or red.
Right.
That's like all you really have, because
that's similar to what Dylan and I are working on with that virtual Hugo project. We're using the Mind Effect to create a VR interface for controlling their humanoid robot. And so we're trying to use the coded visually evoked potentials to flash the 3D interface items in the codes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So right. So that's another, but again, it's like, it's a very restrictive paradigm, right? That,
in what way? And you mean just the amount of frequencies that are available?
Well, just in terms of you have to very much. So the difference being like, why can't I just use naturalistic stimuli? And so I did want to mention this particular paper just because I thought it was awesome. So in bioRxiv, there's a paper right now that's called something like the Grand Budapest Hotel fMRI study, and so I'll find the link, but just so it's interesting because in the abstract, what they're basically saying is, because of Wes Anderson's particular style of shooting, that there's lots of scenes that basically just have a face maybe drifting in the scene, or you're even fixed, and so it's basically the same. And because he's got so many well-known actors that you can do so as part of the study they're doing like known versus unknown faces and things like that.
That's
really
fun.
cool.
I have about 10 anime I'd love to do with that with. One would be Kizu Monogatari or Bakemonogatari, any of the Monogatari series, because they have a lot of scenes just flash in, flash out very quickly. And they also have a lot of translation scenes where they just move across the screen and only one object is moving, or different objects are in a very specific orientation. Like every frame of that series looks like it came out of a museum, and it is so identifiable instantaneously with certain colors, and since everything flashes so much, it could be an interesting test.
So I'd mentioned this to Ebik, that what you can do with ML tools, or basically what people are doing with ML tools, and I dropped a link for the Grand Budapest Hotel paper. There's also if you are interested in that, there's a new resource for naturalistic fMRI studies that I'll try and drop the link in, but that basically what people are doing are using like CV algorithms like YOLO that are going through a video scene and identifying the objects. Even better if you can identify kind of like features, like if for some reason in naturalistic that there were differing frequencies of flicker of those items, then you would totally get that in the EEG, and you'd certainly know which channels that you would show the greatest signal on. So yeah, this is naturalistic studies are being done, and it's a real, anyway, that's why I love this paper.
Yeah.
But
same with gaming and stuff. Like I haven't seen many research things about like 60 Hz versus 120 versus 140 using EEG and stuff like that, even though there's been a lot of research showing that we can improve things like our perception latency with better like high frame rate screen.
Sure.
But then when you get into movies and live action things, everyone says stuff feels weird when they watch a high frame rate movie. I've watched a couple high frame rate movies in theaters, and they are definitely different, but I don't know exactly what perception is changing. Also, 3D effects in high frame rate movies feel very different than 3D effects in regular 30 frame or 24 frame per second movies. So if there was a way to look at things like that, it would be really cool. But it's also hard to get that content. You cannot buy high frame rate movies.
Sure. But this was certainly what Alex and I were talking about in terms of like the cool thing about a game server is that you can kind of generate a movie for people. It's set up to generate a movie semi on the fly, or certainly, like this is the wonderful assets in Unity for giving, AI to a bunch of objects and agents in a game, or and that multiple people could be obviously interacting with that at the same time. It would be easy for us to take various objects in the game and give them a flicker frequency, give them frequency tag them, right? Yeah, so that would be it's not pushing it in the same way as like the super high frequency monitors and things, but it would be relatively, it'd be easy to detect with like cheap hardware.
Yeah. And is it just a regular flicker of like on-off style flicker, or do different types of flickers, like if it's a color change flicker, like what causes like epilepsy and stuff, like do those types of flickers work better or worse for EEG perception? Or
so I would need to check literature. I don't think it matters in terms of what color it is. You do have, you might want good monitors in the sense of like, depending on how they're refreshing, certainly like there were limitations what we could do with CRTs, right? But then you want higher frequencies than you might think, but not too high. So you're in this kind of range. You want to avoid like endogenous oscillatory power, yeah, so then it's just like, can you flicker at multiples of whatever your screen refresh is? So if it's like, I don't know, you want to say flicker at 23 hertz or 25 hertz or something like that.
Interesting.
But I don't know in terms of like inducing seizures or anything. I don't know if that color matters. Certainly, it's usually just big photic stimulators that are just
contrast or like
very bright and just on off really really quickly.
Yeah. I wonder if any of this will be discussed at this weekend's event, the Gaming and Neurotech event, because a couple people there do EEG and gameplay, and a couple of the talks look like people did exactly what I thought people were going to do, which makes me really happy. And I wonder if their findings line up with my hypotheses. Have we announced that yet tonight?
What, the Neurotech Gaming 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you did at the beginning, but I can do that.
That was
again.
before this was recorded.
Oh, okay, sure. So let me just get the. And
yeah, I'm going to show it on the event link on
here it is. I've got the Eventbrite. Okay.
Yeah, so this happens this weekend from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on July 18th and 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. on July 19th. It looks like there are 6 speakers. The first one is...
Wait, what time have you got there? Because I'm sure...
GMT.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have prefaced that. Yeah, so first someone at Valve, then Brain Attack, then Tesla Soup, and on day 2, Neurable, Flying Mollusk, and Brink Bionics.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they are sharing, and
what's the
how much simultaneous eye tracking will be done too.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the U.S. times would be.
Well, so it's 10 a.m. starts 10 a.m. Pacific time.
Okay, so 1 p.m.
Yeah.
East time. Cool. Okay, I'll have to get up early this weekend. That's going to be difficult.
And I'm just seeing if I can search.
Oh, by the way,
yeah.
There's some kind of a Neurotech gaming talk in the Gen Con event, which is like the big gaming convention that usually happens in Milwaukee. I wish I had a link handy, but if you search in the list of events, maybe I can find it for you. It's a free event this year because it's not happening physically. And like I said, there's a talk about Neurotech stuff with gaming.
That would be cool. Like, I know at GDC, if I ever see any brain or alternate interface talks, I go to those, as well as any like biosense or haptics events, because all of that stuff is so critical to the next stage of gameplay interaction, is improvements in user input and user response.
I've got a link. There are 4 slots on 4 different days. There's 1-hour sessions, which are all about BCI games.
Can you post it in the chat?
Yeah, and they have a bit of an emphasis on accessibility, like allowing people to play games that are already existing games using BCI as an input method to do that. And just making games that are inclusive and accessible to people who have trouble with physical interfaces, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm posting it. Let me just, here we go.
Yeah, I remember at one hackathon I was a part of, we were trying to figure out a good controller for a friend of mine with cerebral palsy, and trying to figure out a way for his phone to give a response for playing Pokemon Go, because he couldn't really see all that well, but he could flick his finger, and if using Google Glass or any single eye like multifocal lens, he was able to see through stuff like that.
Just want to drop in a couple more links before we wrap up in a few minutes here. So I love all the gaming, and I'm really excited for this weekend. I think there's going to be a lot of people attending. I just wanted to throw in something there about the biomedical engineering summer school that's coming up August 5th to the 11th, and these are certainly for people who don't know, Yen Hausen is somebody who's very well known for finite element modeling of EEG, real biophysics modeling, as well as Thomas Snoshi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but at Leipzig, and they do, and they're both responsible for various great computational electromagnetic packages, as well as some really great tools for computational neuroscience modeling. That he will be Thomas Noshi will be presenting online at Computational Neurosciences next week, which is actually, I believe it's starting the 18th. So it'll be starting this weekend and going into next week is Computational Neurosciences. And I love the name of his package, which is Pirates. So it's Pirates, but Pirates. Anyway.
Can you post that
sure.
in the chat?
And anyway, on the meetup, you see the links to all these in terms of the conferences. And
Hey, Alex, I'm in the Discord now.
Okay, great.
My other name is Drummer.
Okay, cool. Is that a Snow Crash, or sorry, a Diamond Age reference?
What you mean, the drummer thing?
In the Diamond Age?
What are you talking about? I played drums.
Oh, okay. So there's a science fiction book called The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson.
Yeah.
And there's a mysterious group called the Drummers in it.
What do they do?
It's actually rather hard to describe.
Do they have a percussion-based society?
Sort of, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, they play beats for money. Oh man, that would be so much fun. I don't know. It's pretty
Sorry, I zoned out for a second. What's this about drumming?
They're kind of like a futuristic cult.
No, I have a heavy background in percussion.
Oh, cool.
So do I. Very heavy.
I have a welterweight background in percussion. What you say? I played the rock band drums a whole bunch, and a little bit of real drums.
Goes to show you I was a killer at the guitar, but I could not play the drums to save my life because the notation of how it just like comes at you. I'm like, that's not music.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know the songs, you don't have to read them. You just got to play the songs on the drums. That was the easiest part about them.
I'm pretty sure EMG. If we did Guitar Hero but with EMG, it'd be kind of rough. You'd have to have like a really robust threshold algorithm or something.
And there's only what, 5 buttons?
So
you
the future,
5 very easy muscles.
If you've seen the game Rocksmith, that's really the future of it. I have a guitar. I have actually 2 guitars right here, but I have a guitar here called an Any Gig, I think it's called, which is a very lightweight guitar, and I've been learning to play guitar better with a game called Rocksmith, and you can see this is a very tiny guitar with no frets or no
Your
pegs.
video's off.
Yeah, we can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, let's see it.
So you see how there's no pegs up here?
Is that a real instrument, man?
This is a full-size guitar.
Can I see the body?
Yeah. So these are the tuning pegs.
Holy cow!
Wow.
Tiny, right? But it's a full-size guitar.
So
it plays exactly like a real guitar.
Does it pick up the vibrations at the base of the fretboard, and it doesn't?
Yeah, there's a pickup in it and everything. It's an electric guitar.
Oh wow! So there's no magic in the fretboard.
No, it's just everything that usually goes up here is down here, and so there's no body. There's no like extra space. But anyway, the reason I have the rainbow-colored strings on it is because I play Rocksmith, right? So the colors match the game. So you can just buy these neon-colored strings that match. When you play Rocksmith, it's real guitar. It's everything Guitar Hero was, but with a real instrument. And I think that it's much more amenable to learning when you have a real instrument than when you have some like 5-button plastic toy. And it might be interesting to do BCI stuff while playing learning games like this, like trying to learn instruments, and see if we can learn anything about like our attentional states and whether they are detectable. because you know when you're like screwing up in a song or not. There's feedback data available, and you could try to look at what your brain is doing. Like, is there something that happens in your brain that like precedes or is triggered by screwing up in the music game? I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
It looks like Rocksmith is gonna keep rocking. They've got an announcement dated on 0403. I guess.
I really want them to add drums and keyboards so that it's a complete band experience.
Yeah. Another good game to possibly test this with would be Osu, which is a pretty, like, it's kind of underground, but it's a massively followed, like, rhythm game that is incredibly hard because the main version of it is generally uses a touch screen, and you have to follow these objects all over the screen. One of my friends plays it the keyboard version, which uses 10 keys. And he's like one of the higher ranked worldwide players for Osu in the keyboard fashion. But it is a game that like some fans made a VR version of a while back, like in 2017, and it's very easy to modify. Like we could probably get it working with EG pretty easily to like just figure out what we're tracking, or even try to control a rhythm game with EG.
Well, let me wrap things up for those on the East Coast. And
I gotta go too. Good night.
Oh, good night, Alex. So I dropped in a link there for Pirates. And again, like computational neurosciences is going to be starting this weekend, and I also highly recommend it. There's usually lots of good EEG modeling. I'm also just going to drop in this naturalistic neuroimaging database because I do think it's cool to see what's happening with modeling people watching movies. There was tons of conference material we didn't get to cover. FENS was all this week, the Federation of European Neurosciences, and yes, and sorry, people messaging, and we will be doing a wrap up next week of not only computational neurosciences, but we can talk about what we saw in Neurotech Gaming 2020. And yeah, John, just wanted to say that Brainweb hasn't fully, hasn't decided on a date for an August hackathon, but Roberto would love to see EEG included. And yeah, I think that might be, it certainly might be a way to get, I think it would be easy to invite some of the people like Pierre Clisson, TimeFlux developer was already going to do, they were going to do a like a hackathon in March, and that got canceled because of COVID. And I think, since that's really never going to be, at least there's not going to be any in-person meetups for the foreseeable future. I think we could definitely get some more people involved in that hackathon, even if it's just working on documentation or testing or, but it'd be great to add that. And obviously it was great, I did ask Roberto about doing this kind of like citizen science data collection, and he said he didn't know of anything, but it sounded awesome. And like, yeah, the only thing he mentioned was of course the like 1001 Nights, the woman at Institut Pasteur, yeah, who was using high density EEG to capture her sleep, which is really cool data. Somewhat, I don't know if Paris will be doing a Neurolib tutorial, but I did post in the Slack some really cool research data, high density EEG, 256 EEG data from split brain patients sleeping. That's really cool, about some of this slow wave sleep modeling that Kyler Kagan is doing with Neurolib, and looking at, yeah, so this is super important just to understand the role of the corpus callosum. But he's, of course, doing memory consolidation in sleep and potentially augmenting that with TDCS. Still really hoping we can get him to come talk in Paris about what he's been working on. And yeah, next week we've got MindX. Julia Brown from MindX is going to be talking about what they're working on in terms of BCI improving a user interface in spatial computing. And I've probably forgotten about a whole bunch of what we didn't cover the in the Slack, the San Francisco Slack. Suhas and I were talking about this new focused ultrasound paper that came out that was really cool. I've also saw that a Doppler ultrasound company was bought by Compumedics, which I thought was like interesting. And it seems to be relatively cheap, and it's interesting what they were doing with functional Doppler ultrasound. And yeah, so another imaging modality that is potentially doable with some of the it's much more doable than, say, the focused ultrasound, or requires less sophisticated equipment than the focused ultrasound equipment. But yeah, look forward to talking again next week. And I want to thank our videographers, Ryan and Alex, and of course, everybody who came in and came to join us. You don't have to leave, but we're going to close the recording down, and I'm going to catch some dessert.